Yeah, I've taken a long enough break. Hey there, LBT Squad, I'm your host Alex Pop, and I'm back now to talk spoilers in The Land Before Time 14, Journey of the Brave. As you'd know from my spoiler-free review, I had a great time with this movie. It brought me back and made me feel like I was 10 years old again. So I'm here to talk more in detail about the things that I loved about this movie, as well as some areas that I think could have been improved. And if you've been following me, I'm sure by now you've probably seen this movie, unless you live outside the USA. If you haven't seen it, then I'd recommend not continuing watching, because I'll be getting into important plot points this time around. But to those of you who have seen it, we'll be looking over some of your reviews too. The first thing I have to point out is that when Littlefoot finds that Bronn isn't with his herd when they arrive in the Great Valley, the only character's absence that I was wondering about was Shorty. Where was he in all this? You'd think he'd be the first one to run up to Littlefoot and inform him that their dad is missing. I guess maybe the writers thought that if Shorty appeared at that moment, then he'd have to join Littlefoot and his friends on the search too. If he appears in the next movie, and that's if it'll be made, then I'll just assume that he was hanging in the back of the herd, being the one most worried about Bronn, and I'll forgive his absence in this one. Now, one negative thing that was pointed out by Silverdale KS1 is the use of cartoon sound effects, saying that they don't fit with The Land Before Time. And yeah, that can be problematic at times. Although most of the cartoon sound effects I didn't even notice until my second viewing. But it does feel out of place when Sarah shakes her head dizzy and you hear that noise that kind of sounds like, something like that, I don't know. Or when Petrie falls out of a tree prompting a banana peel slip sound effect. Though to be fair, I guess this movie can use it if Jurassic Park can. Another thing Silverdale KS1 criticized was that Grandpa Longneck sounded more like a middle-aged man than an elderly man. And yeah, like I said in my review, most of the replacement voice actors were excellent, but Barry Bostwick was the only exception. And it really gets to me because I can't help but think Jim Cummings would have been so much better. He had previously replaced Kenneth Mars as the voice of King Triton in The Little Mermaid Ariel's beginning, and he did a very good job. So it baffles me that they wouldn't think to have Jim Cummings fill Kenneth Mars' shoes again as the voice of Grandpa Longneck. But even then I wondered, what if Grandpa didn't have a voice actor this time, and we learned that the character had lost his ability to speak? It would have showed how he was aging, and I feel it would have doubled as sort of a dedication to Kenneth Mars. Now I, like many other fans, was disappointed that Ruby and Chomper are only secondary characters in this movie, but my mind was somewhat changed when I read a comment left by Anthony, who said that after so long, he felt that it was better for this one to focus on just the original 5. And I think that's actually kind of a good point. I just hope that Ruby and Chomper aren't sidelined in every movie that may follow this one. So Ruby and Chomper join Grandpa, Mr. Three-Horn, and Wild Arms on the search for the Gang of 5, because as Grandpa says, we need all the help we can get. Well, if that's the case, then why didn't Grandma and Ducky and Petrie's moms join the search party? The other line that put a questioning grin on my face is from Sarah's dad. Out of all the crazy stunts these kids have pulled, this is the worst. I was like, really? You think so? Between crossing the ocean, going to fix a broken rock formation, and wandering into the mysterious beyond just to prove to Sarah that geysers are a thing? Alright. So on the kids' journey, they go through the land of the featherhead shark-teeth, that being the Tyrannuses, of course, and it's a pretty cool location for a shark-tooth chase. Before that chase scene takes place, though, that was where the movie started to drag. I guess for Daniel Ritchie, this is where he started to get interested again, but Hot and Stinky was the only song that I didn't care for, and it really didn't feel necessary. I had to smile with my eyes half closed when the song is the last thing played during the credits. I was like, really? That's the note you wanted to leave us on? On top of that, when Littlefoot takes a tumble into the creek when trying to stop Spike from eating the stinkweed, and the others, including Sarah, are like, Littlefoot's going for a swim? I want to go for a swim. And thus the stinkweed washes off. That part I thought was really contrived. But when the Tyrannus chase happened, I got invested again. And after the kids defeat them and they exit the land of the featherhead shark-teeth, that was where I started to get the feeling that this movie would have the emotional center that I wanted to be there. Sarah, Ducky, Petrie, and Spike stop to sleep for the night sooner than Littlefoot wants to, and we're treated to this 17-second scene where Littlefoot lies awake, detached from the group, just staring out at the Fire Mountain in the distance. You start to really feel how personal this journey is for him, because normally he'd be snuggled up with his friends, but this isn't the usual journey where he finds strength in their companionship. He can only think about getting to where his father is. And then Littlefoot lets his frustration with them loose the next day when he and Sarah get into an argument on who the cause of their lack of progress is. Littlefoot turns to all four of them and angrily accuses them of slowing him down. Now this bugged me at first because it never seems like Littlefoot to just blow up at them like that. But when I let it sink in, it made sense considering how he knows that his dad's life could be in jeopardy. The only other movie in the series where he has such a personal goal would be Journey Through the Mist, but adding a scene like this would have made too much conflict in that movie. So had this scene been done in any other sequel, it wouldn't have worked. So Littlefoot leaves the others, which begins the song Better Off Alone, and there are parts of the song that reminded me too much of On Your Own from The Secret of Source Rock, from Littlefoot having second thoughts about being alone when it starts to get dark, and even right down to him scaring a small lizard off of a rock. Perhaps scenes like this are intended to evoke certain elements of previous installments, much like The Force Awakens and Jurassic World did, but at times it comes off as more of a ripoff. Although it's never as outright blatant as something like Star Trek Into Darkness, where the actors may as well just break the fourth wall and be like, "Remember that? Remember that?" One instance that does work is the moment right before the song, when Littlefoot and Sarah yell at each other about the right way to reach their destination, leading to them parting ways and the other three go with Sarah, very similarly to that scene in the first movie during the trip to the Great Valley. The difference is that in the first movie, Littlefoot is grieved when the others go their own way. In Journey of the Brave, he's okay with it, and thus it allows some variation in the story while still paying homage to the original movie. What I think would have made this entire sequence even stronger is if instead of Littlefoot immediately regretting his departure from the group at the end of the song, he looked back on the decision that he made at the end of the Great Longneck Migration, and wonders if after all this time he should have gone with his dad instead of staying with his friends in the Great Valley. After seeing the sequel before midnight, I recognize that as a great way to build on previous installments in a franchise, to have characters reevaluate decisions that they've made in the past. So Littlefoot runs into Etta inside a cave while evading a sandstorm. The cave entrance fills up with sand, and just as Littlefoot is clearing the sand away, an earthquake occurs causing rocks to fall and block up the entrance again before Littlefoot and Etta can get out. At that moment I was like, there it is, the ever-famous plot-convenient timing of earthquakes in The Land Before Time. It is kind of a reoccurring pet peeve in the series. It's the same kind of deal as watching The Force Awakens and being like, yep, stormtroopers are just as horrible at aiming as ever. Also conveniently enough, Etta was present during the eruption at Fire Mountain, and even getting her wings singed. She witnessed Braun evacuate his herd from the area, and went back to save Wild Arms, who was trapped by a seismic crack. The last Etta saw of Braun was when the ground collapsed underneath him after saving Wild Arms. Littlefoot is inspired by how his dad stood by every single member of his herd, and he feels ashamed that he didn't do the same for his friends. Etta helps him regain his hope through the song Look for the Light as they search for a way out of the cave. Soon after, Sarah, Ducky, Petrie, and Spike drop in through a hole in the ceiling. Upon reuniting with Littlefoot, they all make up their quarrels, and they ride down the river out of the cave, taking them to Fire Mountain. I had a wonderful time at that scene, between the excellent animation and the new musical score, and seeing the gang be able to have a cool and relaxing time after so much conflict, and complete the last part of their trip in the process. And then when the ride is over, we're treated to that shot from the trailer where the six of them all stare out at Fire Mountain, now closer than ever. I gotta say, that shot reminded me a lot of the ending of Fellowship of the Ring. And I loved the dramatic choir music that accompanies that shot. I thought, it's been a while in the series since we've heard vocalization in the soundtrack. In the meantime, Grandpa, Mr. Three-Horn, Ruby, Chomper, and Wild Arms try to evade a Carnotaurus that had attacked Sarah, Ducky, Petrie, and Spike earlier. And something that bothered Mr. Kyle's Films 1 productions were the roars from the Carnotaurus, and he says, "I'm sure you know what I mean, Mr. Pop." First of all, I don't think my dad reads YouTube comments. Please call me Alex. Second of all, sorry, I don't really know what you mean. The roars from the Carnotaurus sounded decently realistic, if that's what you meant. What did bother me is when the Carnotaurus is about to find group number 2, but it gets distracted by a herd of ornithomimus that happen to be passing by. Not only is this a cop-out, but the Carnotaurus never even sees the group, so there was really no point in it showing up again. The climax would have been even more exciting if it had followed them, and they had to battle it while Littlefoot and the gang save Braun. Yeah, they find him. Etta points out the area where she saw Braun fall, leading to Reba McEntire's best-delivered line when Etta warns Littlefoot, "You may not like what you see." Littlefoot hesitates, preparing himself for the worst, and you can see it on his face as he thinks, "I'm going to see." And my heart started racing at that point. I was thinking, is he going to find him unconscious? Is he going to find him dead? I had forgotten for the moment that Braun had a voice actor. Littlefoot darts forward and looks over the ledge to see his dad lying on a flat piece of land surrounded by lava with his legs stuck underneath a huge rock. And I kinda hate to point this out, but Braun has been there, exposed to heat from the lava for at least a few days. I'm fairly certain he would have died from heat exhaustion, though maybe the lava started flowing later. The kids manage to get to Braun when Sarah dismantles a barrier around a nearby body of water, causing it to pour into the lava, solidifying it. And I was sitting there watching, I was like, cool. Though I still have to call crap on how just seconds after this happens, they're able to run across the igneous rock no problem. It would still be pretty darn hot. So how do they free Braun from the rock? You ever seen 127 Hours? Spoiler alert. No, of course that doesn't happen. But apparently the rock is just heavy enough that Braun can't lift it himself, because the only extra help he needs is for the kids and Etta to use a log as a crowbar to pry the rock off of him. With Braun now saved, they all climb up the ridge to unite with the group following them. Now the only voice actor I haven't addressed yet is Scott White as Braun, and he does a good job for the few lines that he has. He just wasn't quite as Kiefer Sutherland on the nose as I was hoping he'd be, because I had seen some of his YouTube demo reels where he does a string of flawless impersonations, like Homer Simpson, Jack Sparrow, Scooby and Shaggy, and others. So his performance here would be just one level lower than all of those, but, you know, I guess you can't expect even Jim Cummings to do every single voice perfectly. Or maybe I'm just saying that because I learned that he watches my videos. Hey, Mr. White. Sir? My final quibble with this movie is that the ending is too rushed. Littlefoot gets a few compliments from his dad and grandpa, and then they start the journey home, and then the credits roll. There should have at least been more of a moment between Littlefoot and his dad, or maybe show them spending time together in the Great Valley as they'd been looking forward to all year. We do get treated this final frame of the entire gang, including Ruby and Chomper, all standing side by side as they begin the trip home. That was great to see. I just wish they had thought to use James Horner's Discovery of the Great Valley for this ending, the same musical piece that concluded the first movie, as Littlefoot and his friends all meet up on the hill for their group hug. That would have made just all the nostalgic feels just sweep in, and it would have triggered the waterworks. Opportunity lost. Still, at the end of the day, Journey of the Brave was an improvement on The Wisdom of Friends in every aspect. Despite all my quibbles, it feels like the filmmakers really did care about giving us a Land Before Time movie, as opposed to just some kids movie with the Land Before Time name scotch taped onto it, and I applaud them for that. As for you guys, while there were some of you who were less than thrilled, including Christy Carricker, who said that the movie was as bad as The Wisdom of Friends.
Christy, are you nuts?
Sorry, couldn't resist. It's okay if you think that. Most of you seem to have found satisfaction, with Mystic Girl 220 noting the huge difference in tone and characters compared to The Wisdom of Friends, Mad Nam calling it the best sequel since The Mysterious Island, and Superworld Jumper remarking, "I feel so happy I want everyone to see. It's like the bright circle is shining inside of me." All your scores average out to a B. You thought it was good. And I thought it was great, having given it a B+, but with an ending that's less than conclusive, if there's another movie, or season of TV episodes, it should pick up right where this movie left off. And I really do hope that there's more. I think we've got a good team of writers behind it. Just ditch the cartoon sound effects, add in more of the James Horner theme, and continue with the references and continuity to predecessors, as well as those deep character moments that we've all come to expect, and I think we'll have some pretty solid follow-ups. Until then, I'll be bringing out more videos for you guys, including the reviews that I had skipped due to time restraints, and those will be on movies 8, 9, 11, 12, and 13. That's a wrap for now. If you liked this and you want to see more, slap the like button, subscribe for future videos, and follow us on Facebook. Thanks for watching. I'm your host, Alex Pop. Catch you later.